Hello everyone, Marcus Dahl here, and in this video, we're going to be having a look at episode 15 of Sword Art Online 2, The Queen of the Lake. For my overall impressions, guys, I'd say this episode was pretty good, but at the same time, it felt awkwardly like filler. I mean, it can't really call it filler because the truth of the matter is it is sequentially what happens in Sword Art Online, but there's just no overarching narrative here, so it just kind of feels a little awkward because there's no complete final epic goal or significant event in comparison to other storylines in Sword Art Online, so I'm not really too sure what to think of it in all truth. I mean, it was a good episode, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed what they showed of it, and it certainly goes to show how well A1 Pictures can flesh out an anime's world, because ALO just, quite frankly, looks like one of the greatest games ever, and I would just love to have an opportunity to play something like that. But, alas, there's nothing really going on aside from the plot thread that they established this episode, and if that thread doesn't feel engaging to you, it might be a little bit tough to go through this arc, I'd say. But regardless, I personally still believe that this episode was well worth watching, and that if you've enjoyed Sword Art Online up to this point, this will be a nice reprieve from what we've had up so far with the GGO arc. On to the spoilery section of this review. Only 3 real things happened this episode. First, they find out that other players are aware of where Excalibur is in Alfheim Online. Second, they decide to gather up everybody so they can go on a quest to retrieve the sword. And third, they actually receive the quest. Nothing too complicated, but there are just a few things that I want to note here. First of all, in the anime they cite that it had been several months since Kirito and Suguha had found out where Excalibur was before everybody else. But here's the thing, guys, for those of you that haven't read the light novels, it was actually back in the Fairies Dance arc when they found out where Excalibur was. This is one of the things that they cut out of the original anime due to time constraints of the season. During the quest to go to the Great Tree in Alfheim Online, Kirito and Suguha ran across and did that entire scenario that they describe in this episode. So technically, they're kind of changing up the canon in order to make it so that it happened a few months prior. So technically, they're mixing things up a little bit in order to make a little bit more sense on a canonical standpoint from the anime. It would be nice if they tried playing around with the history and timing of certain things more in the anime than they currently do, just to make things make more sense in comparison to the manga, but alas, it's just kind of nice to see that little touch there, since otherwise a lot of people would be going, they did? When did they find the time to do something like that during Fairies Dance? Which quite frankly they shouldn't have had to begin with, because hey, they were rushing apparently. Well then guys, aside from that, there are a few other little things I want to note. In particular, the intro. Wow, I really like the featurettes and animation for this intro. The music itself isn't all that appealing to me, but just, I don't know, the style is really catching me. Maybe it's just because I'm a VR enthusiast and that sci-fi techie style just gets to me. But I just really like the animation for this intro. Although I'm curious because they have so much stuff in this intro that relates to the Calibur arc. Are they going to be using the same music and animation once we go into the Mother's Rosario's arc and then just scrapping this part? Or are they actually just going to stick with this throughout the Mother's Rosario arc? I don't know, it just seems kind of interesting how much it focuses on the Calibur arc for the intro. Because I'd forgotten that technically Sword Art Online did switch up its intro during the halfway point of the season last season as well. So, just a little thing I'm thinking about right now once the Calibur arc is over. Another cool thing that I noticed that they also did was finally taking some time to explore the role-playing in a freaking MMO RPG. The RPG does not mean experience points leveling up and potions. RPG stands for role-playing game. So it's so nice to see Klein mention, oh, I don't use magic because I'm a samurai and samurai wouldn't use magic. And then all of a sudden having to have a debate whether or not that flame sword skill that he uses qualifies as magic. It just feels like something anybody would have if they were trying to roleplay in a game that doesn't exactly fit into the chronology or kind of role that they're trying to fit into. So it just felt good to finally see a bit of role-playing out of these guys. I mean, we can see since the very first season that Klein and his guild had a bit of a samurai thing going, but it's nice to hear him just plain old say samurai for once or something. Gosh, it just felt good. Moving on to a bit of VR talk here. At one point, Kirito grabs onto Shinon's tail when she's playing as a Cait Sith character, and she has an extreme reaction to it, which seems to be a mixture of, I don't know how to put it, arousal, distress, and a variety of other things. And it's just kind of interesting to see the way people can interact with non-human organs in VR, just because of the fact that even with my own imagined or speculative VR touch system right now, it is not theoretically impossible to do such a thing. So it's just interesting to see the way that a character can interact with different organs that don't actually exist in virtual reality. Another interesting thing I saw was the empathy that everybody showed inside of the ice area whereby they were seeing the players slaughtering those beasts. Normally you wouldn't think about it too much because, come on guys, that is literally the most basic kind of MMO quest there is aside from talk to this person. I mean seriously, it's always kill X amount of Y creature or get X amount of this item. So it just felt interesting to see that kind of slaughter occurring and everybody having a feeling to that, which, while admittedly this is a fictional story, is something I can imagine, since with VR everything is just so much more up close and personal that it's going to be interesting to see how people straddle their moral lines in VR as compared to now, whereby we're divorced from everything that is occurring on the screen due to the distance between us and the virtual experience. On a final note about the quest itself, I'm just kind of amazed at exactly how significant the quest is actually going to be to the world itself continuing forward. I mean, some MMOs right now are trying to explore that idea, such as EverQuest Next, which is trying to explore the ideas of having entire servers have their own separate chronologies for things and or having events occur in different fashions, whereby things can dynamically scale based on the way players interact with the world itself. So it's kind of nice to see that being extrapolated upon within this story. However, at the same time, I just find it a little bit, I don't know, strong, though, to have a living AI aside from Yui just pop in out of nowhere just for this kind of an occasion. I mean, on some degree, she also feels a little bit less like Yui because of the fact that she does regard the lore with some degree of seriousness. Something that I find a little bit bizarre because it's like, they extrapolate that she is a little bit smarter than your average AI, yet simultaneously she is still behaving and performing out the functions necessary of an AI. Isn't the qualifier for an AI or a being that is somewhat of its own sentience that it should be capable of making its own logical choices and coming to determinations based upon its own will, rather than something that is pre-programmed into it? I don't know, it's just something that kind of caught my eye and bugged me. Either way, I personally love it that this game has a quest whereby players are in different and opposing factions in a complete and utter fashion. I mean, if you think about it, Kirito's group is attempting to assist the Queen of the Lake, whereby the other group is technically working against her. So it's interesting to see the way their interests are clashing, even though they are both within a system that is generating MMO quests procedurally. I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm a little bit out of touch with current MMO loops and quest styles, but it just seems interesting that more games don't do stuff like this nowadays. Well then everyone, that just about does it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and do watch Sword Art Online 2 over at Crunchyroll.com or Hulu or Daisuki.net or whatever streaming site that you may choose. Thank you very much for watching the videos. Do remember to rate, comment, share, and subscribe, since it helps out the channel and allows you to keep up to date with all the VR stuff that I'm generating at all times. Thank you very much for your time everyone. This has been Marcus Dahl, logging out.